Here's some wattle bark I collected. I peeled off of live trees right after we cut them down. I peeled it off. The best bark is from older, mature trees. You want to harvest the bark and then store it in a dry place. Your best bark strength will come from mature trees where the bark was dried. This stuff has been dry about 8 months, and now I'm chopping it up. It's going into smaller pieces, and the tarp is out so that I can collect all that sawdust and use it as well. All that bark I cut up filled my 2 stainless steel kettles. You've got all the sawdust in there too. I'm going to add water to this and boil it for a long time for my first pouring. This is my first pouring. The water from those 2 pots filled these 3 containers. It's about as dark as coffee. I let it boil a while until it got nice and dark, and then I strained it and poured it off into this big tub, which let it cool quickly. And then I refilled the pots with water. They're back on the stove. And I'll just keep filling up these jugs or 5-gallon buckets, and I'll label each one. First, second, and third pouring. Once your hide has been in the bark liquor for a couple of days, it's time to get it out and scrape the remaining membrane off. The tannic acid helps shrink everything up, and it starts to tan the membrane, and then it's just so much easier to get that last bit of membrane off after it's been in the tank for a day or 2. So in the same direction that you scraped when you were flushing, you do the neck first and then turn it, and now I'm working from the middle of the spine out towards the edges. If we didn't scrape this membrane off, the tanning solution wouldn't be able to get to the flesh side of the hide. So it's really necessary. So now that the membrane's scraped, the flesh side is a lot cleaner. Scraping off the membrane, all of those yucky little bits, removes most of the hair that stuck to the flesh side during the dehairing process. And then you can see the edges over there that I trimmed off. Those were the thin or broken, wrinkly edges that I know I'm just not going to use that part of the leather. So here's the grain side, and back in the tank she goes. I was almost done tanning. I had run through all of my second and first pouring liquid. It's getting really close, so I decided to just help things along by throwing in a little bit more bark, like a week or so ago. It's tanned all the way through in the thickest part. So I rinsed it a couple times and strung it up in a frame to dry. The tanneries use clips, and they just clip the edges. This is more backyard style. Once it dries, we'll put oil, tallow, and wax into it, and it'll be some really great leather. Okay, to make our leather conditioner, it's tallow, granulated beeswax, and neatsfoot oil. I filled my cup with the beeswax on the bottom, some tallow on top, and then I poured the oil until it just covered everything. And now I'm going to heat it up in the microwave, check on it often and stir it, and then we'll roll out a dry hide and rub it in while it's hot. So you basically pour it on in a section and rub it in with your hands. This is one of the first hides that I ever bark tanned, and I've just had it sitting around dry for a year or 2, and I'm finally getting some conditioner into it before I cut it up and use it for a inlaid padded seat on a saddle.